You've entered Bookstorm. Your favorite authors are here to dive down deep into their best-selling books. Stay tuned to brave the storm.
Well, welcome back to Bookstorm podcast listeners. We are so excited to have you here with us today. We've got listeners in, I've got to look at this, 101 countries and territories, 2,000 cities all over the United States. And we know why you are coming back. It is because we are bringing you the very best-selling authors. And today you are in for a treat because this is one of our first nonfiction books, but we are thrilled to welcome to our show international speaker and best-selling author, Dr. Samra Zafar. Dr. Samra, welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to be on the show, and especially now knowing that I am your first or one of your first nonfiction authors. So, thank you so much for welcoming me. It's truly a delight and honor to be here.
Well, it was by choice because we read your book. We absolutely loved it. And we just thought our listeners would really enjoy jumping in and diving into a lot of the things that you talk about. There's so much wisdom in your book. Very briefly, though, I know that they'll want to know a little about your background. So if you'll allow me, I want to just tell them
Mhm.
just a few of the things that you have accomplished in your life. We are just so excited to know you. First of all, I mentioned award winning, internationally renowned speaker, best selling author. You're also a trauma expert and a physician and an educator. I love that you've been voted twice one of Canada's top 100 most powerful women and a top 25 most inspiring women, because we can see that as we read your book and as your prior book. It is inspiring. You speak in a tone and a way that just invites the reader in, and we're participating with you. So I love that level of inspiration. That's a gift. In addition to that, you have had an arranged marriage in the past. That is something that you wrote about in your best-selling book, A Good Wife: Escaping the Life I Never Chose. Now, you travel the world talking about some of your experiences. You talk about bias, allyship, trauma, racism, finding your purpose, empathy, and much more. And I want to just go back for a second and tell the listeners just very quickly a little bit about some of your experience with trauma. You arrived in Canada as a child bride, and it was an arranged marriage, a forced marriage. And at some point, you made a decision that you were slowly going to leave that situation. And I know we'll talk about that a little bit. But you write about your experience then as a single mother, as somebody earning a degree, and even the experience you had with your own community of other people from Pakistan who may have treated you differently as a result of some of the choices you've made. Did you want to add anything as far as background that you think would be helpful to our listeners?
I think you've covered so much. I feel like you know me more than I know myself
Oh,
then. Well, thank you. Thank you for just, getting to know me and my background. And I think the only thing I'll say is that I'm a mother of two daughters, and a big part of me wanting to leave my situation back then, having arrived in Canada as a child bride and gone through a lot of abuse and trauma, and being told by a lot of people, including my own mother and my family, that I should stay and be a good wife because that is what my duty was. And to go against that and defy those norms, um, the biggest motivation I had to be able to do that was that I wanted to give my daughters a better life, a different life than the one that I had. I didn't want them to grow up fighting for their education the way that I had to. So I think when I think about inspiration, that is my source of inspiration is being a mother.
yeah, it's very beautiful. And I know Julia's going to talk a little bit about the book in a second, but I do want to add you talk about those relationships with your daughters, not only in your books, but also in your TED Talks that you
Mm.
have done that are very popular. I've actually listened to them, and I just love that you have laid your heart bare. And that's why people are listening and paying attention and connecting with you. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And I think there's so much power in telling our stories because when we share stories, we see ourselves in each other's stories, and stories have a way of connecting us that transcends all other barriers. You know, we may look different, we may have different skin color, we may come from different places, we may eat different food, but we all have similar stories, and we all have these journeys that we're on to heal, to be better, to be seen, to be loved, to be included for who we are. So when we share those stories, I think stories are a great way to build bridges and break down walls.
Yeah.
So I did want to give our readers some background to the book that we're here to talk about today. And the title is Unconditional, Break Through Past Limits to Transform Your Future. And while this is our first nonfiction book, I really want to emphasize to our listeners and hopefully future readers that this is not your typical self-help book. This is not your typical autobiography. Dr. Zafar really weaves together her personal story with research and to share everything that she's learned as a woman, a physician, and as a mother about breaking free from harmful beliefs that hold us back from living our most authentic and unconditional lives. So, in this book, as you're reading, you offer practical suggestions and you even have exercises to do the hard work of digging out past trauma, unpacking faulty ideas that no longer serve us, and you really are trying to create healthier neural pathways and help readers to embrace who we truly want to be and who we can learn to be in order to love ourselves unconditionally, which was a very, very cool premise. All
Thank you
right.
so much for that wonderful synopsis, Julia. And when I was writing the book, one of the main things I wanted to do was to really bring in and weave together and blend in the story and the science pieces. You know, I am a physician, and yes, the science is fascinating to me. You know, I'm training as a psychiatrist, so am specializing in human emotions and therapy and all these tools that we are using to heal ourselves and our patients. At the same time, it's really important to, again, share those stories, because when we heal, we are healing as human beings. And a lot of our wisdom lies in our experiences. And my experience with trauma myself is what led me into becoming a physician and now training as a psychiatrist. It's because I wanted to bring in what life has taught me and then combine that with the science of healing to be able to offer people not just understanding, but also tools that they can use. So I'm really happy that to hear that, you know, as when you read the book, that really came across.
It absolutely did. And interestingly, one of the overarching themes in your book was courage, which isn't necessarily a science at all. And you repeatedly you took examples from your own life how you built courage in your marriage and with your kids and gaining autonomy with driving and things of that nature. And that really resonated with me because I think we often think about courage as being fearless and taking these huge leaps into the unknown. But you encouraged me and these readers to think about it differently. Can you explain to us or tell us a little bit more about how you came to that understanding over time?
Absolutely. So, you know, when we go into a wellness store, when we go into bookstores and we go into the wellness section, you'll see all these journals and diaries and things like that you can buy, and then the words across them are going to be like, be fearless, you know, fearless woman, fearless this, like we even describe like fearless leaders, right? There is no such thing as fearless. And I'm not just seeing that as somebody who has, I think the biggest theme of my life has been courageous actions. And I'm also saying that as a physician. When we see people who say, I'm not afraid of anything, we get worried because either they're lying or they're a psychopath. So there is no such thing as fearlessness. Fearlessness is a myth. And I think it's a very damaging concept, because when people do feel afraid, which they naturally will, whenever you're doing anything that goes against the norm, whenever you're doing anything that is stepping into the unknown, something you're not familiar with, you are going to be afraid. So when people hear these things, be fearless, courage is, you know, be courageous, be fearless, etc., but they're afraid inside of doing that, they end up feeling weak. They end up feeling there's something wrong with me. I'm not brave enough. I'm not courageous enough. I'm not strong enough. And I think it's a very damaging concept. Everything that have done in my life, every single step that I have taken, whether it was taking my very first high school course when I was in an abusive marriage, whether it was eventually going to university or leaving my marriage, raising my kids as a single mother, or eventually leaving a finance career and going into medicine, becoming a doctor. Everything that I have done that has veered away from the traditional path, I have been terrified. I have been absolutely so afraid, and I have had so many moments of second thoughts and self doubt. And I don't think I can do this. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should listen to others who are telling me to stay or who are telling me to follow this very traditional path. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Like all these thoughts have crossed my mind. And there have been times when I have even gone back. I went back to my marriage 5 times because I was afraid. So when these things happen, when you're doing something that is authentic, that is against what others are telling you, or stepping into the unknown, you will be scared. You will be terrified. So courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is, yes, I'm afraid, I am terrified, but I believe in this. I believe in a greater vision of myself. I believe in a greater vision of the world, of my company, whatever it is, whatever your dream is. I believe in my dream. So I will step into the unknown anyway, carrying that fear with me. And that is really important to understand that fear is there, but courage is accepting the fear without letting it control you or your actions. Courage is, yes, fear, come along with me. You're welcome to sit with me, but I'm the one calling the shots. We're going to do this anyway.
Yeah.
I like how that was worded a lot because I feel like it doesn't even just have to apply to something that you're doing outside of your norm, but something you've chosen to do that you want to do. You know, like
Mm.
I felt that way going into school or making, career choices. And you kind of sit with that and say, this is right for me. I believe that. But at the same time, oh my goodness, I'm, scared of how I'm going to do or what that's going to turn into. So
Anything
that
new,
that
anything
strikes.
new, right? My younger daughter is now starting university, and she's having moments of I'm so terrified. My older daughter is graduating university. She's having moments of I'm so terrified. So whenever you're going doing anything new that you haven't done before, that you're not comfortable with, you will be scared.
We need to hear that more often. That was wonderfully put. Again, I had said this in the beginning. There are so many wise things throughout your book, but you make it very approachable. And I just love this book. I want to ask you then about something else that also struck me. And that was this idea about being intentional in seeking out friendships. And especially as you get older, this is not an easy thing to do. And in fact, there's something you said that I thought was really good. You talked about how some people might view that as friendship gold digging, but you suggest maybe it's something a little different. And that is being deliberate about making healthy connections and maybe escaping some of the patterns of the past and the friends you chose. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. And it is such a big uh, theme in my life, and a big protective factor in my life is the community that I have built. Because when I left my marriage, the community I was part of then completely rejected me and shamed me and shunned me. So I was all alone. And then like, okay, I have to find people. We all want a community. We all want to feel like we belong. We all want to feel connected and loved and seen for who we are. So I started to develop new friendships and make new connections and connect with leaders or mentors or colleagues, etc. And I learned that, you know, oftentimes and we're taught this as well, like, we will find our place of belonging with people who are like us. And sometimes people find that in their place of worship, sometimes in their place of, community, as in like in a racial community or an ethnic community. Um, and in my case, what I have found is that the best connections The most authentic connections are ones that are made on values and are made on shared energy. So when you are meeting somebody and they make you feel good about yourself, they make you feel like in their presence inspires you to be the best person that you can be. It makes you feel safe. It makes you feel seen. That is your people. It doesn't matter how they look, what gender they are, or any of that. The fact that you feel good in their presence, you feel safe in their presence, that is what matters. And that comes from your paying attention to our feelings, paying attention to our energies, and oftentimes our body will tell us things that our brain cannot yet comprehend. So pay attention to how you feel around someone in their presence and then run with that. That is what I mean by being intentional. There have been so many, I had my graduation party last year when I graduated medical school, and there were so many people in the room who, and I made sure to invite people who are just, true friends. And everybody had this stories about how I asked them to be my friend or be my mentor. And everybody was like, yeah. And then I met Samra, and the next thing I know, she's sending me a text, hey, let's meet for coffee. Will you be my mentor? Will you be my friend? So I am like the queen of cultivating connections, and I'm very intentional. So when I meet somebody, oh my God, this is someone I feel so great with. Like, I love their energy. I love their values. I resonate. I feel safe in their presence. It was such a beautiful conversation. You can instantly tell that. And I will make sure to follow up. I will make sure to arrange that coffee, that dinner. Sometimes it requires persistence because people are busy,
Yeah.
but it's all about cultivating those connections. And it's not gold digging at all, because gold digging is when you go around and you say, oh, well, this person has the right profile on LinkedIn. Let me reach out to them and maybe they'll offer me a job someday, right? And I will portray myself to be who I think they want me to be. And I hope they will like me. And that is transactional.
Yeah.
However, when you're around somebody who may look nothing like you, who may not even work in the same industry, who may not have anything tangible, like any transaction to offer to you, but they make you feel so great and so confident that now you feel better and more confident and more courageous to go after those opportunities yourself.
Yeah.
That is priceless. That is beyond any transaction. And when I met my biggest mentor in life has been a man by the name of John Rothschild. He when I met him, I had just graduated, or I was about to graduate my undergrad about, 12 years ago. And I won this big award at the University of Toronto. And he was chair of that committee. He is still by far the most successful person I've ever met. He was at that time, he's retired now. At that time, he was the CEO of the one of the biggest restaurant chains in Canada. I was working in economics and finance. So there was nothing that he could potentially offer me. Like I didn't want to work in a restaurant chain or anything. Like I didn't know what he like I was thinking I was on the PhD track and whatnot. But there was just something about him when I met him for the first time that it made me feel like $1 million. It made me feel like, wow, I can conquer anything. And I asked him over coffee, I said, will you be my mentor? And he said yes. And over the past 12 years, he has become the closest thing that I have had to a healthy parent, the closest thing I've had to a dad. And again, like such different backgrounds, such different lives,
Yeah.
no transaction. But anytime that I need any advice or any kind of support or encouragement, he's my speed dial one. And when I'm going through anything tough, he's my speed dial one. So those are the kinds of people we want in our life. That is about being intentional. Is who do you feel safe with? Who do you feel good with? And whose presence is adding value and adding joy to your life?
Yeah.
Those are the connections we should be intentional about. And the other side of intentionality is to build boundaries for with those who don't make you feel so great about yourself. And sometimes those are people you think would be great for you, but they're not. Sometimes they're family, sometimes they're friends who you have outgrown. And I've had friends in my life who were friends at that time, and then as I moved in other directions, those friendships ran out. And if you hang on to them and you chase them, sometimes then they become painful. And now you're a version of yourself that you weren't aren't, that no longer resonates with you. So it's important to be fluid about it too. And sometimes you just have to be tough. You have to cut people out, as mean as that sounds. But there are people out there who are not good for you. And those are painful separations. And one of those for me, has been my mother. My mother is still uh, very shaming and judgmental when it comes to my life choices. And while she's my mother, and I have love for her, I have empathy for her, I can support her in a more arm's length way, and I do support her financially, but she's not somebody who is going to be part of my inner circle and part of my life, because I don't want that kind of negativity, criticism, and judgment. Certainly not for me, and especially not for my daughters. So our values don't align anymore. And I don't think they ever did, but now even more so, because I have become more firm in my values and getting to know who I am and what values I want to develop. So I've had to build that boundary, and I've had to cut her off from most of my life, except, just having a little bit of contact that is very transactional. And it hurts when you do that, especially when you do that with people who are supposed to be in your life, like your parents, your siblings, your close friends. It does hurt, but what hurts more is their presence. And you want to be, again, mindful of that, you like weigh the pros and cons of that connection. Is their presence causing me more pain, or is their absence causing me more pain? And then make that decision accordingly.
I love that you're modeling that kind of intentionality and boundary drawing for your daughters. And, it's always the hope as a mother that you have a daughter who can be a little stronger than maybe you were in certain areas. But they're picking up on those cues. They're watching, some of the choices and how it shakes out a few years later. So I just love that because there is a lot of practical application in what you said, but we got to look at that bigger picture of modeling behavior for others.
Yes, and
Mm,
when it comes to my daughters, though, I would say that I have learned a lot from them. A lot of the
mm,
courage that I have now had to be able to draw that boundary from my daughter, from my with my mother, sorry, actually that courage comes from my daughters. My
mm.
daughters were able to draw that boundary with their father.
Yes.
My older daughter is now 23, and when she was about, I think she was about 10 years old when I left the marriage. And in the first few years after I had left, and she was still intermittently seeing her dad, and I would encourage her to see him because I wanted them to have their father in their lives. And one day my daughter came home and said, "Mom, you know what he said to me? He said that women are only good for the three C's: cooking, cleaning, and caring for their families. If he was not my dad, if he was just some random person that we knew through our acquaintances, and he said something like that, and these are his values, he is a misogynist, he is an abuser, he is a racist, he like all these things. Would you want someone like that in my life as a role model?" And I said, "No, I wouldn't." And she's like, "Then why does he get a free pass? Just because
Yeah.
he's my biological father? Just, he's not good for me. He's not good for my self-esteem. He's not good for my mental health. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to include him in my life anymore." And she made that decision when she was 13, 14 years old. And then my younger daughter followed suit, because my younger daughter um, came out to him. Both my daughters are queer, and my younger one actually came out to him, and the way he responded was absolutely disgusting. So she was like, "I don't want that in my life. If he can't accept me for who I am, then he doesn't belong in my life." And watching them do that with their dad actually was like, why am I hanging on to my mother's approval? And that is what helped me build the boundaries with my mother. And now it's funny because my mother, like now that I've become a doctor, it feels like my mother is finally proud of me. So nothing before that mattered, but now, I come from the South Asian culture, and doctors are held up on an altogether different pedestal, and so now she's like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," and it was always my dream that one of my daughters would become a doctor, and I'm like, "And what did you do to nurture that dream and help that make that dream come true? Like push me into marriage at the age of 16?" So I think being able to like see that, like now when that approval finally came, it didn't matter at all. I was so indifferent to it. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, no big deal. Whereas for years, I was like dying to hear those words from her. So that again speaks to how inconsequential that approval has become in my life, because I have that approval from so many others, but most importantly from myself. And that is the biggest thing you need, is the biggest approval you need. The one person that you want to get love from most of all is yourself.
Yeah. Well, hence the title of your book, right?
Yes.
Unconditional.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I remember reading, you wrote about your daughter pointing out to you about how you were being treated in a dating relationship later. And
Hmm.
she had said, if I brought somebody home that was treating me that way, would you want them in my life? And you were
Yeah.
like, no, like
Yes.
absolutely not. And so I mentioned to my mama, not even an hour ago, I was like, I loved reading how you were learning off of your daughters, because I think she and I have a relationship like that where we're continuing to learn off of each other in all of our different endeavors. So it was cool to read that in print.
Exactly. And the reason is that oftentimes we hold higher standards for our children than we do for ourselves. And a really good tip to unlearn some of these behaviors where we put up with negativity and toxicity in our lives is to simply ask yourself the question, if the person that I love the most, and most of the time that's your child, if the person that I love the most, my kid, said this to me, how would I respond?
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's just negative self-talk that's going on in your mind, like, oftentimes we pride ourselves on being our worst critic, we pride ourselves on being perfectionists, and then we shame ourselves when we fail. And if that is going on in your mind, you're indulging, or you're, catastrophizing things, or you're having this negative self-talk, ask yourself, if my daughter came to me, or if my kid came to me, or my best friend, my spouse, whoever the person is you love the most, came to me and said, I made a mistake at work and my boss hates me. I just had a breakup and I think I'll be alone forever. I had a fight with my friend and I think no one will want to be my friend anymore because I'm not good enough. I think, whatever challenge they're going through, would you ever say to them, this person that you love the most, would you ever say, oh, yeah, you're a loser? You're never going to make it. Might as well quit while you're on top. Like, you're never going to find any friends. But how many times do we say that to ourselves? Right? So, the one of the best tricks that I use when I find myself catastrophizing and going down that negative self-talk train is to pause and say, would I talk to my daughters like this? And if I won't talk to them like this, I need to stop talking to myself that way. Because again, we often hold higher standards for others than we do for ourselves, especially when it comes to our children. I've seen that in my practice as well. Like, one of my colleagues works very closely with domestic abuse survivors and victims, and what we were talking about is how often we see women who are in abusive situations or have been, and they'll say, yeah, if my child was being abused, I would leave, but you know they're safe, so maybe I should stay. It's just me that he's abusing, right? And it's like, why are you not worth saving?
Right.
Why is your child the only one who is worth saving
Right.
or worth loving? What about you, right? And it's really important to ask ourselves those questions, because we have been taught that our needs are on the back burners, others come first. And we think that actually by doing that, you're doing a service to others, but you're actually not. There is no honor in sacrificing yourself.
Yeah.
Even the word selfless, it's like, oh, you're so selfless. Why? We should not be selfless. We should be self more. We should be more of ourselves. we should love ourselves more because there is no service to anyone in diminishing our light. In fact, we need to shine our light stronger and brighter because we deserve it and the world will benefit from it. The world needs it. When we're more loving to ourselves, we're automatically more loving to others.
That was beautifully said. And
Yeah.
it also ties into what you wrote about the Superwoman syndrome, this idea of fulfilling multiple full-time roles, sometimes because we think we need to be selfless.
Mm.
And I don't know, that was, boy, did that hit me hard. And Joy, I didn't mean to cut you off because I know you had a question you
No,
wanted
no, it's okay. Um, and actually that's a perfect segue because I did send you over some notes and some questions about values and intentionality, and I think that was already answered beautifully. And I had a backup question that I revisited because it just stuck out to me about the Superwoman syndrome. And I view my mother in this light. That is, she's my superwoman. She's a superwoman to so many, whether that's clients or my brothers or anybody else in our family. And she had, previously expressed that she had some similarities and parallels in things that you wrote about. And as I'm reading, I'm like, okay, the superwoman syndrome is something that you feel like you have to do, right? It's I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I am the only wage earner. I have all these things that I feel like I have to do. But what do you do when you actually do have to do all of those things? How do you give yourself grace or retrain and reframe your way of thinking where you do have to do all of those things but you don't have to be superwoman?
Yeah, yeah, that's such a great, great point you brought up, Julia. And it's like the superwoman syndrome comes from, first of all, having to do all those things. In my case, I did not have a choice. I had to be a mother, I had to be a provider, I had to be a student. I was in a situation where I had to do all those things just to be able to survive. The other option was to go back to my marriage, and that is not something that I was willing to do. So, what do I do? Wear all these hats, wear my cape, and go. And here's the problem: the society overall rewards that, right? We teach women, especially, that yes, you can have a high flying career. Don't neglect your home in the process, right? Your kids come first. You can be CEO, but also remember you're a mom and a wife. We juggle all these responsibilities. And then when we excel at those, the society rewards us with a cape on our shoulders. You're Superwoman. You are Wonder Woman. The amount of times I've been called that. And before I started thinking about this Superwoman syndrome and being like, where it is, does it come from? Like I used to, before I was like conscious of it, I actually used to be proud when people would call me that. It would boost my self-esteem. Like who doesn't want to be superhuman, right? Who doesn't want to do that? However, what that does when you start doing that, and you're doing that because again, sometimes you have to, sometimes you're rewarded for it, sometimes you're wired that way. And now what happens is it becomes part of your psyche. So now
Mm.
even though you don't have to do it, like in my case, you know I am in a position that is way better than where I was 13 years ago. Like I have a good job, I am a good profession, my kids are doing well, but at the same time I feel the need to be superwoman, to be hyper independent. I have trouble relaxing. I have high functioning anxiety. And that happens because now that I don't have to worry about a million different things, my brain is like, well, what's wrong now? Like what is the next crisis? And I usually use that analogy of, imagine you are a guard in a lighthouse, and your job has been to protect your community from attacks and warn the community if something happens, right? So, and you have been doing that really well through some very chaotic times. There have been wars, there have been storms, there have been dragons coming out of the sea, there have been all kinds of danger and chaos that you have protected yourself from, protected your community from, and done a really good job. But guess what? All that is over now. The sun is out, the sea is calm, it's beautiful, and you can actually relax. You can sit and you can relax and enjoy the fruits of your labor. But guess what you're doing? you're still standing there and looking for signs of danger. Oh, is that a worship there? Is that a shark coming at me? Is that a dragon? Whereas it's actually not any of those things. Just a big, beautiful ocean and a horizon. But you can't
Yeah.
pause and you can't relax because you're not used to it. And that is what happens to us as women when we juggle so many responsibilities. Either we have to, or either we've seen our moms do that, or either we have, seen other women who are successful do that. Women always talk about work-life balance. Do we hear men talking about work-life balance? You know, we talk about it because we're the ones who have to balance it all. We're the ones who are told you can't have it all. We're the ones who are told, like, if you need to do this, you have to be good at that and that too,
And
right?
expected to look
So
good doing it and
and
Yeah.
keeping
then
ourselves
we're
together.
rewarded for it. We're awarded. We won all these awards of being powerful and inspiring, and like brilliant, and all of these. There are galas after galas awarding women on doing everything and doing it well. So and then when we don't, or we don't want to, we feel like failures. We have trouble relaxing. And our model of wellness becomes burn yourselves out and then go take a spa day because that's going to apparently fix everything. And that is also problematic. A lot of women can't afford spa days, So it's almost like wellness is luxury. Whereas actually, wellness and self care is a necessity, but feel guilty for being, even the words you use, indulgent self care. Why is it an indulgence?
Right.
It's a right. It's something that we have to do for our mental health. Do we ever say indulge in exercise? No, because it's good for you. We should be able to, we should move, right? Do we ever say indulge in work or indulge in your career? So it's all part of life. So it's really important to realize that we don't have to be superwomen to be worthy. We are worthy as we are. We don't have to be superwomen to allow ourselves to take care of ourselves. That is something that is a necessity. It's something that should be our norm. We don't have to be superwomen to be brilliant and intelligent and smart and be awarded. We already are all of those things. So yeah, you can still be ambitious without burning yourselves out because you're wearing some kind of a cape that is being heralded by society as superwoman.
Absolutely. And I think that actually gets down to one of the very roots of your book is even in times where you do have to do those things and you have to power through, when that's all said and done and the war is over, and even though you're still on high alert, you have to unlearn it. You have to pay attention to that fact and unlearn that feeling.
The
So,
same things that helped you survive can actually sabotage you later on.
Mhm. Interesting. Wait, I'm over here
So
taking notes, by the way. This is so good.
I feel like you and I both have like that addiction to stress. We love just adding things to our plate and handling all of these things, and it is something we have to sit down and be like, stop doing that to each other. So,
But what you just said about unlearning and having those tools, do you mean just in terms of like that hypervigilance, or I'm curious what you're going to
hypervigilance,
say.
but also hyper independence,
Mm,
which
okay.
is what Superwoman Syndrome is,
Yeah.
right? Hyper independence is actually a trauma response.
Yeah.
Whether it's, the big trauma, like in my case, I went through abuse and I had to be hyper independent, or even it could be little trauma, like even just the messages we're surrounded with as women are traumatic oftentimes, right? So that hyper independence that we develop comes from being told that as women we have to push through and break barriers and shatter glass ceilings.
Yeah.
That's the message, right? Because there are so many barriers that you have to break through as women to be successful. So that means we have to be strong, we have to be fighting, we have to be roaring, we have to raise our voices, etc., etc. Now, even as I talk about it, it sounds exhausting. And when you do it on a daily basis, it depletes you, it depletes your energy. So it's really important to realize that those things that perhaps helped you survive earlier on are now sabotaging your emotional and mental and physical well being. And hyper independence is that, like, yes, you hypervigilance is one, but hyperindependence is another one. And most high functioning people, high functioning women actually suffer more from hyperindependence than they do from hypervigilance. I know I do.
Yeah.
And
Believe
something
it.
that this is something I'm talking with my current partner about all the time. And he's a wonderful man, and he wants to help make my life easier. He wants to be of service. He wants to take things off my plate. And it's all coming from a place of love. I have a really hard time with that. I'm learning to get better, but in the beginning of our relationship, I'm like, why is he doing that? Is he telling me that I can't do it myself? Is he
Mhm.
diminishing my autonomy? And there was none of that. And we had so many discussions, and there were a couple of arguments. I'm like, where is this coming from? Right? Like, this man he just did so much around my house, and that I now don't have to do. But I'm like thinking, where's the catch? Is he telling me I'm not good enough? I'm not strong enough to do it myself. And he was not at all. He's like, listen, I love you. I just want to make your life easier. Right?
Yeah.
So being able to let go, being able to accept help is a sign, or sorry, being unable to accept help is a sign of hyperindependence.
Yeah.
And a lot of women struggle with that, especially those who have done it all. Now that we
Yeah.
have done it all, give ourselves a chance to relax. It's okay to let others take care of us. It's okay to lean on others. It's okay. It's a sign of strength. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not have good days. It's okay to not be strong every day. And, oftentimes we identify with our feelings like, oh, I'm so weak or I'm so sad. Always say, you're not weak. You're feeling weak. You're not your emotion. You're not your feelings. So you can be a strong person and still feel weak sometimes. You can be a happy person and still feel sad sometimes. You can be a brave person and still feel terrified. So feel you are not your feelings. You are yourself as a whole human being who can feel a myriad of different emotions. So holding space for our feelings while also being true to ourselves and taking actions from a place of intentionality, that helps us unlearn those things. Yes, I'm afraid. I'm going to do this anyway. Yes, I feel uncomfortable asking for help or accepting help, but I will do it because that's the right thing to do. So allowing our, rational brain and our emotional brain to work together, that's an art that all of us can learn.
Yeah. You know, uh, there was a last point I had wanted to ask you about, and I know we've kept you a little long. Do you have a
This
second
is
that we could
like such
ask
a
you?
joy.
Oh, absolutely. You were alluding to something there, and that is also this idea too of knowing the difference between, you know, not liking a job or a relationship in a situation at times, and when it's fundamentally changing you and expressing itself as depression or anxiety. And that distinction is sometimes very hard for people in the midst of something to make. And I was wondering if you could just expand upon that last point.
Oftentimes you hear, like, that if you love what you do, you wouldn't be burned out or you wouldn't have difficult feelings. And that is such a lie.
Yeah.
I think when you love what you do, you are more emotionally invested in it, and you will experience higher levels of burnout. You will feel higher levels of oftentimes anxiety, depression. I used to be a banker. Writing loan agreements was not something I was emotionally invested in. And I never felt burned out in that career. I mean, I had moments where I was like, yeah, I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted. But burnout is a whole other level. And now that I am a physician and I'm doing something that I absolutely love, I'm putting all my heart and soul into every single patient assessment that I do. At the same time, it does take a toll on me. So I have to be even more proactive about my mental health, about preventing burnout, about giving myself balance, about giving myself space to feel all the feels and take care of myself through those things, which means leaning on people, which means allowing people to take care of me, which means sometimes getting professional help if I need to, or even just, practicing a lot of solitude and things that bring me joy, and being proactive about those things, not just on the bad days, but more so on the good days. So asking ourselves, like, yes, there are things about my work or about a friendship or about a relationship that I don't like, But are those things coming from that I actually don't like the work or I don't like the person? Or are these feelings that are coming from, I am right now not well and I'm just not feeling so great overall? So, one of the biggest signs of burnout is numbness. We
Mm.
stop feeling joy for things that otherwise would give us joy. We stop feeling um, feeling meaning in something, and it is really important to not make major decisions when you're experiencing that, because that state of mind is temporary. You will get better, you will heal, you will become stronger again, and then you'll regret your decision because you made that decision from a place of desperation rather than a place of empowerment.
Mm.
It's really important to be well when you're making major decisions in your life. Make them from a place of empowerment and consciousness. So, when I was going through medical school, I did experience burnout because I had just left a financial career behind, embarked on this new journey, given up a lot of my autonomy, taken on student debt. I was now finding myself sitting with people who were much younger than me and memorizing things that I would never need to know just to be able to regurgitate them on an exam. And I was in my late 30s. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Why did I do this to myself? And then the night and the crazy night shifts and the no time off and having no autonomy and flexibility over my schedule after I'd already worked so hard to get all that, had all that, and then gave it all up and then went back to university again to be a doctor. So I had moments where I just was so unwell and I was absolutely like there were moments when I would like sit in my car in my driveway and just cry. And my best friend said this to me at the time because I called him once and he actually was my former boss when I worked in banking and now he's my best friend. I called him, I'm like, listen, please give me a job. Just hire me back. I don't want to do this. And he's like, Samra, I remember the day when you told me that you want to become a doctor and how much joy there was in your eyes. How 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 much conviction you had for your purpose. How you felt about this dream that I want to take what life has given me and combine that with the science of healing and help my patients and my communities and all the things you talked about. Is that still true? Just close your eyes and visualize that dream. Is that dream still there? And I closed my eyes and I saw it as clearly as I did that first day when I made that decision. And he said, then believe in it and keep going one step at a time because what you're experiencing now is temporary. And if you quit now, you'll always regret it.
Excellent.
So it's important to understand our feelings are temporary. They don't necessarily reflect the reality. So just because we feel sad and we feel angry doesn't mean that we're in a it doesn't mean it's that we should give up or we should quit.
Yeah.
I'm all for quitting things and giving up things that don't serve you, but if you still believe in that dream, and I talk about courage is the first step of courage is believing in a dream, being having a bold vision. So even in those early days of my marriage, when I had no hope of ever being able to go to school, I had been told by my family and my husband's family that don't forget about education, you're not going to have it. I would still stand in front of a mirror and I would practice my graduation speech that
Mm.
I would one day hope to give. And I gave that speech 15 years later when I graduated from the University of Toronto.
Wow.
So that vision was always there. Just because your vision is there, it's clear, does not mean your path will be clear as well. That path will test you. There will be a lot of roadblocks, a lot of naysayers, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of uncomfortable feelings, a lot of bad days. And that is the moment you close your eyes and you visualize that dream again and again and again. And if that dream is still there, you keep going. If you've
Yeah.
lost that dream, If you don't have that anymore, that's okay. We're allowed to have new dreams and change our dreams. Maybe something new has come up. Maybe you want to now go into business. Maybe you want to now do something else. But then that's fine. Change the path. I'm all for changing paths, right? We're all allowed to. We're not meant for one purpose and do one thing for the rest of our lives. Maybe there's something else you want to do. That's fine. But that's again coming from a place of empowerment. I have a new dream now. I'm going to pursue that. Go for it. But if your original dream is still valid and you're just going through a hard time, that's when you push through. That's
Yeah.
when you dig in and you find that perseverance, that last bit of tenacity to take one tiny step further. And if you just keep doing that, you will persevere and you will succeed.
Beautiful. That should be a day one medical school lecture for all incoming students.
You
How
know,
about
I
law
get
school?
quite a lot
In
of
law school. In law school, you're exactly right.
and pretty much every grind school, right? Like
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, a lot of people write to me now, and they're like, you know, I'm about to go in med school. What's the, you know, any advice, any study tips? I'm like, I have no
Yeah.
advice for you. You'll figure all that out. If you made it this far, you know how to study, right? The one advice I have for you is be extremely self-compassionate.
Mm.
Take care of yourself because it will test you. It will be a grind. You will have bad days. And that is when you have to be kinder to yourself than ever before.
Yeah. Excellent. I have chills, and that's how reading your book is we can hear, and now I hear your voice speaking to me, but just a lot of hard fought knowledge and advice and wisdom. I mean, you earned it and you have a beautiful way of conveying it in a very encouraging and inspiring manner. I love it. I want to tell our listeners how to connect with you. I know they're going to want to. You have a wonderful, wonderful website. It's Samra Zafar, it's ZAFAR.com. And I just want to thank you for your time. I know that you're on social media as well. You got your TED Talks that people can listen to. Just search your name. But we hope that you come back on the show in the future. We are so grateful for your incredible wisdom and your beautiful spirit. It has just been a fascinating interview.
Oh, thank you so much. Likewise. I feel like I was just sitting among friends, you know, and
Yeah,
maybe now I'm going to be more intentional about cultivating those connections with you since you're not far away from where I live. So, you know, we're going
I
to make
hope
it
so.
happen. I will definitely reach out and we're going to make this happen. Thank you for having me on the show. It's been an absolute joy and honor. And it's just been such a gift.
It
And
has.
yeah, thank you.
All right, we had Dr. Samra Zafar for that incredible interview. First of all, I want to say asking for a friend for some of those questions, but I don't know about you, Julie, but I got so much out of that. That was incredible. And I just want to tell our listeners connect with her, buy this wonderful book, Unconditional. And I want to tell you also, listeners, about some other authors that we have coming up. We've got Maggie Stiefvater with the listeners, Rick Muffina with If Two Are Dead, Brad Taylor, Into the Gray Zone, Chanel Cleaton, The Lost Story of Eva Fuentes, Jesse Rosen, All the Signs, Allison Raskin, Save the Date, Tess Gerritsen, The Summer Guest, and Elka Joshi with 6 Days in Bombay. Listeners, we continue to grow every week. We ask that you share our social media, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, we're on TikTok, on YouTube, and of course, our beautiful website, bookstormpodcast.com. Have a wonderful week, all.